Hello everyone, Tom Vogel, Wrestling's Finest, PC game. I believe this is video 19. Tonight's topic is managers in Wrestling's Finest. So, what I'm going to do right now, we're going to go master on both sides. You know what, forget that. Let's go Georgia. I'm going to choose my Georgia wrestlers. So, we are going to go here, and we're going to pick two wrestlers, and we're going to pick Great Kabuki, and then let's pick, good question here, who I want to pick. We're going to pick an early Terry Gordy. Now, what's going to happen here is, I'm going to pick a manager for each wrestler. And for the Great Kabuki, we're going to pick none other than Gary Hart. Now, if you look here, the managers are listed by alphabet, first name. So we're going to get down here. We're going to see Gary Hart. Click Gary. And we're going to come over here. And we're going to click with Terry Gordy. He's going to be accompanied to ringside by P.S. Purely Sexy, Michael Hayes. So we're going to pick Hayes. And for this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and control both wrestlers. So you'll see we have Gary Hart, Michael Hayes. We're going to click OK. And for those, Terry Gordy, member of the Freebirds, quick background, great wrestler. I believe he started wrestling as a 15 or 16-year-old. Died way too young. Part of the fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes and Buddy Roberts. Great Kabuki, the gentleman, for you youngsters don't remember him, was the came in with kind of like a mask, a hard mask, just covered just his face, and his face was painted. I guess the story was he had been burned over coals as a young man, back in Japan or Korea or China, wherever it was. And his claim to fame always was great nerve holds, but his big thing was the green mist that he'd spray out of his mouth. He'd use that, quite often to win matches, and he'd basically spray it out into the eyes of his opponent, and it was just this nasty green stuff that would go everywhere, and then he'd cover the guy and get the pin. But brilliant savate kicks. He'd do this little spin in the ring, kind of gave me the creeps. Even as a senior in high school, you just kind of looked at the guy and you're like, oh, he just kind of scared you. And then you had the great Gary Hart. His presence is always felt when he's at ringside. So anyway, there's your quick background. Let's go. Okay. So now our match, we have it all set up, ready to go, and you'll see here, I wish I wouldn't have done that, so let's get it out of there. You'll see we have Great Kabuki, Gary Hart, the pictures. Now, what you can do here is you click Gary Hart's picture, and you'll see his outside ring ratings. You'll see he has nothing occurs. Wrestler and manager discuss strategy. You get to add 10 to the wrestler's stamina. Wrestler throws opponent outside ring. Manager gets cheap shots. I'm just going to shut up here and let you read these here. If you want, you can push pause on your screen and analyze each one of these if you want. Of course, each manager is rated differently here. And then we have pin ratings. This can occur when a pin occurs. If you want to call for Gary Hart, you have nothing occurs. Manager distracted ref, go to original control. So basically the pin or submission is stopped. Opponent knocks manager out. No manager for the rest of the match. It'd be, you could see a manager getting up on the ring apron and yelling at the referee, and the, opponent quickly jumps up and goes and cold cocks him. But by doing that, he loses the ability to continue going for the pin. And then the last one, manager and wrestler DQ'd for manager's interference. So basically, he went in the ring to break up the pin attempt. These ratings only come into play during a pin or submission. Here we have foreign object info. Some managers have specific foreign objects, like Jimmy Cornette would have the racket. Jimmy Hart would have the megaphone. Some had a cane, whatever. This comes into play when while ref is distracted, manager uses a foreign object. on opponent, go to the foreign object chart and use the manager's foreign object listed below, which is this information. Down here, interference rating. This is based on 1 to 5. And I was just talking to John, I think it was yesterday, and we think we might rate an early Gary Hart manager when he was much more active outside the ring. When he had his plane crash, he either didn't want to or wasn't able, and who could blame him, to take bumps outside the ring. So he wasn't quite as active, but as a younger manager, he got involved a little bit more. But anyway, his interference rating is 3, and that's out of 5. All that means is how, it's a very important rating, but it basically ties in if the computer opponent or if the computer Vogue is controlling the wrestler with Gary Hart. That will dictate how often Gary Hart would interfere, in a match, because the computer has to decide when to use a manager and when not to. So that would be the Gary Hart card. If we go over here to Michael Hayes, 1 to 10 is nothing, and I'll just let you look at here a little bit. Michael Hayes is a rating of 4 because he'll get involved more. Typically, wrestlers turn managers probably aren't the best managers. Like here, 39 to 40, opponent pins wrestler when manager accidentally hits wrestler with a foreign object. So let me just look at something Gary Hart. See, Gary Hart only has the 40. So he only can have that occur one time. You'll also see that Gary Hart's only knocked out on 1 number, where Michael Hayes, since he's probably more active, he gets knocked out twice. Gary Hart only has 1 DQ number for getting caught for an object, where Michael Hayes has 2. Michael Hayes gets, look at this, 9 cheap shots. Gary Hart only has 3. Gary Hart was more, 1 to 21, it's either nothing or they talk strategy, where Michael Hayes, 1 to 10's nothing, and then 11 to 14 they talk strategy. So Michael Hayes, just from this part of his card, is much more active. He does not have a specific foreign object, and his pin, 1 to 15, nothing. Manager distracts ref, opponent knocks manager out, manager and wrestler DQ'd. Typically, the more seasoned, experienced regular managers will have more DQs here, just because when you want your manager to jump in, you're saying it's okay if he gets DQ'd. I just don't want my wrestler to get pinned. So, how do managers come into play? We're going to hopefully have at least one on here I can show you. No luck there. We have one there. Okay, we got a couple here. So, how it works is this. If you let the computer control one or both wrestlers, it will decide when the manager becomes involved, so you don't have to worry about anything. What I'm going to show you right here is we're just going to start the match real quick. And then, so what we're going to do here is Terry Gordy, we'll wait till he gets in control here and I'll show you. So we're going to go action, Kabuki. So now let's try it here. He's going to play his outside ring strategy card. So he clicks play this card. We're going to go action. Opponent's using a strategy card. He has a counter card, Kabuki does, to counter it, but we're not going to. We're going to let it go through. So here it says outside ring, or Terry Gordy has a choice of outside ring action or ally manager help. Use ally manager help. We're going to click yes. Okay, so what happened here is we had basically, I think we're using the 13, the outside ring numbers used. So if you look at Michael Hayes, a 13, wrestler and manager discuss strategy, add 10 to their wrestler's stamina, go back to original control. So that's what occurred here. We had discuss strategy. Now, since that was an outside, anytime outside ring comes up during the match, whether it's a strategy card or normally it's just going to be during the course of the match, and you have a manager at ringside, you are going to always get the question, do you want to use your manager or do you want to use the regular outside the ring chart? That is entirely your call if you're controlling the wrestler. Each one has its pros and cons. You know, if you're, say, Nick Bockwinkel and you're defending the AWA title with Bobby Heenan in your corner, having Heenan interfere isn't the worst thing, because I know on his card there's several results where the opponent's counted out of the ring chasing him. And, you know, as Nick Bockwinkel, he doesn't care if he wins or loses. He just wants to keep his belt. You know, that's what world champions did. They wanted to walk out of that ring champion, no questions asked. So in that case, a count out would be fine. Now, let's say Bockwinkel was challenging, say, Vern Gagne for the AWA title. In that case, you'd have to rethink it, even though I know Heenan has two different manager cards, one as a champion and then one the normal one. He doesn't have near as many count-out results on his regular manager card. But again, you really don't want Bockwinkel getting a win by Vern Gagne chasing Nick Bockwinkel around the ring. You don't necessarily want that, because he loses his chance to win the title. And I'm old school. If you're challenging for a title and you're an idiot and you get disqualified or you get counted out of the ring, you know, you might not get a rematch for a while. You had your shot, you better make the most of it, and if you don't get it, we move on. So anyway, that's how the managers come into play. There is one other way, and we're going to try to see if we can get this to come up. And we're going to go here to strategy, and we're going to call for outside help anytime. I think in one of the previous videos I explained there's two outside ring help charts. One during pins and submissions, where typically you're going to have a DQ occur. And then the other chart is for this occasion, that anytime during the match you call for it, we use a different outside ring chart. There's a lot of, I think, pretty cool results. You still, have a pretty good chance of a DQ, but it's nothing like a DQ chance during a pin or a submission attempt. So we're going to play this strategy card. I'm going to click action. It says opponent is using a strategy card. Do you want to counter it? You're going to click no. We're going to let this play through again. So again, Terry Gordy has a chance of outside help for ally or manager help. Use ally manager help. We're going to click yes. And here we had what occurred here. You'll see it's a 5. So if we go to Michael Hayes' card, 5, 1 to 10, nothing occurs. Now, one thing we added with the last update, we added a text file. So whenever nothing occurs results, we draw a text phrase. And this one, it just says, Michael Hayes appears very worried at ringside. So in that case, it was a nothing occurs. Now, had in that situation we called for outside help and declined Michael Hayes' help, then we would have used the outside ring chart, meaning an ally came down. So maybe Buddy Jack Roberts came down. Again, it's your call if you're controlling the wrestler. The beauty of letting the computer control the wrestler is it will decide based on situation of the match and also the manager's interference rating when you'll call for the manager and when you'll just call for straight outside help. So that's kind of the the beauty of that. Now, wanted to show you something here on Kabuki just because it kept coming up. Counter any strategy card used by your opponent. I'm going to show you how that works real quick, going off course here, but let me just do something. We're going to go here and we're going to use specialty hold section. So we're going to click here. Opponent is using a strategy card. After a successful hold, use specialty hold section. Do you want to use a strategy card to nullify? And if you click yes, then that would trump out Terry Gordy getting to use that strategy. Now, the computer, again, if say Kabuki was being controlled by the computer, the computer would decide if this is the appropriate time to use the strategy card. Typically, you're not going to counter that card this early in the match, because even if Gordy lands a move, your pin rating isn't going to be terrible. And there's also a good chance you're going to counter it early in the match because you're not, not as fatigued. So, but let's just say Kabuki had a gut feeling he could click yes, and it just countered. So you'll notice Gordy went from 2 strategy cards to 1, so the only one he has left now is the counter one. So again, how the manager is going to highlight this real quick. You call for a manager if you have an outside ring chart, or outside ring strategy card like Gordy did. You can call for outside ring, and at that point you can choose between your manager or the regular outside ring chart. If you're letting the computer control the wrestler, it will decide for you based on match circumstances and also that interference rating of the manager. Like I said, Hayes is a 4 out of 5 and Gary Hart's a 3. Your other chance you can use it at any time outside ring comes up. So let's say partway through the match, Terry Gordy wants to take Kabuki outside the ring, or vice versa, Kabuki wants to take him out. You will get a message asking, do you want to use your manager instead of the outside ring chart? You can say yes or no, and if the computer's controlling, it will decide. The final way you can bring the manager into play is if you have an outside help strategy card. You can use that card during a pin and submission or any other time during the match, and you will get the option to either use your manager, or you can forego your manager and have somebody else come down. So if you're trying to maybe get an advantage on Kabuki and you think Buddy Jack Roberts might be able to do a better job than Hayes, then you could just deny the manager, and it would go to an outside help chart that would tell you what the result is. All right, I'm going to go behind the curtain here. Some of you said you kind of like this. Makes the video a little longer, but what the heck, you can always just stop listening if you don't like it. One thing that I worked on very hard, and if you look under date modified, you'll see all kinds of dates there. Some of these in other files were actually way earlier than this, but one thing we're trying to do is create text files for all kinds of situations. And if you remember on the Michael Hayes one, when nothing occurred, it said Michael Hayes appears worried at ringside. Well, what we decided to do is come up with text files for all the manager results on their card. So if you see here, you'll see manager text. And, when I showed you the Michael Hayes card, in the Gary Hart, there was a manager gets cheap shots outside the ring. So let's click this here. So if that result comes up, I'm not sure if I'll be able to show you the whole thing here, but we can try. You'll see a good portion of it. Sorry about that. I tried to clean this up for you here. But so if the result comes up on the manager's card where it says manager gets in cheap shots outside the ring, I can't remember if it's like 15 off, stamina, that's how it has been for years. But now what's going to happen is if that result comes up, it will take the 15 stamina off, but then it will draw one of these text files. Like here, while outside the ring, I'll highlight this here, and hidden from the referee, manager blatantly chokes loser with the microphone cord. Here, the next one, manager trips loser outside the ring, which causes him to go flying into the guardrail. Loser is draped over the bottom rope as the referee pushes the winner away. Manager takes the opportunity to land numerous punches, which the referee fails to see. Here we got one after the referee goes tumbling out of the ring. Manager enters the ring and nails loser with a steel chair. So I don't know how many are here, 7, 10, 12, or like 15, 16, something like that. So randomly one of these will be pulled here. So if you want to just push pause and you want to read these, you can. All right, here's another one. This is when the opponent gets counted out chasing the manager at ringside. We'll just pick one here. Winner throws loser into the ropes, but manager pulls the top rope down, causing loser to fly out of the ring, hitting the arena floor hard. Loser is counted out of the ring. Here, referee does not see the manager hit loser from outside the ring. Loser leaves the ring and attacks manager, but is counted out of the ring during his attack. So, again, right now how it works is it will say loser is counted out of the ring while chasing manager at ringside. Winner is declared the winner by count out, or however it's worded. Now, instead of just having that same result every time, the end result will still be the same, but now we have, I mean, how many are here? About 6 or 7 different ways the count out occurs. So here are all the manager text files. Here's the one that some people love and some people hate. The dreaded manager presence. Manager spots a weakness in loser and communicates it to winner, who's able to exploit it. Manager's obvious confidence inspires winner to combine a series of successful holds. Fans temporarily rattle winner, but manager is able to calm him. Winner then implements the game plan with a series of successful holds. Sheer presence of the manager causes loser to lose confidence and divide his focus. Winner takes advantage with a series of successful holds. Now, here's a little thing behind the hood of wrestling's finest. Loser and winner, you'll see in capital. When you see loser, that's the opponent. So, like, say it was, in our case, Great Kabuki temporarily rattles Terry Gordy, but manager, and we'll be able to get in Michael Hayes, but Michael Hayes is able to calm him. Winner then implements the game plan, so the winner would be Terry Gordy, then implements the game plan with a series of successful holds. So basically what we do is we use the word loser for the opponent and then winner for the person initiating the action. I'm hoping, these text files will be a big hit. So far, I think they've done real well. You'll see on this screen here, again behind the hood here, I don't think anybody's ever seen this. I know John and probably Herman know about these, but these are all the text files we have. We'll be coming up with hopefully a future update. We're trying to come up with text files for virtually every situation in the game. It's a long process. It's taken me a long time. I actually just finished up about, over Christmas. I have a separate file for text files for specialty matches. But anyway, you want to pause here and look at some of the stuff that's coming up. Here's what we have for text files for those who might be interested. I think that about ends it for this video here. For those that have the game, you might just want to go in and take a look at the manager ratings. I actually went through and did a tweaked at most, if not all, managers. I cut down the number of what I call match ender results on their cards, such as DQ and countouts. I thought that just slightly too many times we were having matches end when it went to the manager's card. So I went in and kind of looked them all over real close and decided what I could slightly tweak on each card just to make them a little bit more accurate and make using the manager card when they come up that we're not going to have a DQ or we're not going to have a count out as frequently. So but it's fun if you go in and look at some of the managers, like say you look at Miss Elizabeth or the Grand Wizard of Wrestling or Freddie Blassie. You're going to see a lot of these managers and valets have very, shall we say, inactive cards. Their outside ring rating or interference rating is only a 1, so it will rarely occur. But even if it does, it's pretty much nothing occurs on their card. I know some people say, well, what's the point of having a manager if that's all they're going to do? And that's a great question, but we can't just juice up a manager card, to make it more exciting and more fun. Because somebody like the Grand Wizard, a lot of times back in the old WWF days in the mid 70s to early 80s, he would come out to start the match for the introductions, but then typically he would go back to the locker room or the dressing room. His value was he was very good in interviews and he did a great job of building up the match, but he just didn't get involved in matches. And my thinking is if you have a manager that doesn't do much, bring them out to ringside and let them do what they did in real life. They just stood there. You know, Miss Elizabeth occasionally might get on the ring apron, but it was very rare. Other managers like Jimmy Cornette and, you know, you take some of the, like Scary Sherry Martel, Jimmy Hart, a lot of managers, you know, were very active, you know, and when you do use their card, a lot of stuff will typically happen. You won't have, like Jimmy Cornette, I think his nothing occurs is only like 1 to 5. So, or even 1 to 3. So when you use those managers, you are going to have a lot of activity outside the ring, which is realistic. But, you know, the managers are rated exactly like the wrestlers are. They're going to perform like they did outside the ring. You know, Wrestling's Finest does not, cannot, and won't ever capture their interview style, you know, giving heat points or whatever. I just play a fantasy game if you want that. We're not going to have that here. So, you know, it's just the way we're going to rate them. But yeah, take a look at, you know, the various managers and valets, and you will see some very, very different ratings. You know, you'll see the strengths and weaknesses of each one. I'm going to leave you this one final thing here. I want to go here, Gary Hart. Once back in the ring, opponent applies specialty submission move. Fearing for wrestler's health, towel is thrown in. If opponent doesn't have a specialty submission move, treat as nothing occurs. I'm going to leave you with that. Not saying it hasn't happened with more managers, but this was designed for one and only one manager. If this hadn't occurred at the time the managers were created, the cards, this would have not gone in there. I'm not saying since we put this in that might have been discovered and another manager did it, but who does this apply to? And it's not you know, Bob Backlund, Arnold Skaaland. That is not the one. But this applies to one specific manager and one specific wrestler. I'll leave you with that. And if you really want to know, and this will tell me if anybody watched the video, you can post the question or your answer, and then I'll respond in the message section of these videos. So there you have it. Again, thanks for joining. Hope you have a great day. Appreciate you taking time out to spend 27 minutes. You may never get back, but I had fun doing it, and I'll be back with more videos soon. Thanks again, everyone, for the support of Wrestling's Finest. This is Tom Vogel saying so long.